All right. Well, thank you all for joining today. My name's Danny Fitzgerald. I'm with the San Diego and Imperial Small Business Development Center. We're a program that's funded by the U.S. Small Business Administration, as well as the state of California, Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. And we're doing this webinar. I appreciate the invitation from Assemblymember Todd Gloria's office to be able to talk to small business owners in this time of crisis around COVID-19. You know, both of us understand very much so the issues that the public health orders are having, and we're here to be able to guide you through and help you out with a number of different processes. So we'll go ahead and let the Assembly member kind of go first. He's a fantastic partner of the SBDC, been a great supporter of our program, and always has some great insight around public policy and small business. So Assembly member, we'll let you go first.
Danny, thank you so much, and welcome everyone. Thank you for making time. It's good to see so many of you virtually. I see a lot of familiar faces, a lot of important businesses in our district. I'm glad you tuned in, and hopefully this will be helpful to you. I think right now there's just so much information coming at us, and being able to have the direct line to a group like the SBDC, I think hopefully will be helpful as you try and sort out what's going on, where are things at, and where do they stand today, with the recognition that things are basically changing, not even just by the day, but sometimes by the hour. So we'll give you the very best information that we have right now, and commit to continue to stay open and transparent and just share what we know, and certainly take your feedback to make sure that we're advocating where is appropriate. I want to thank Danny and the SBDC for creating this opportunity. You know, we have had a long relationship with one another. I know they do great work year round, but I think they're proving their worth right now during the pandemic, when so many small businesses are suffering and need some guidance, need some technical experience. And so I hope that all of you will follow them on social media, make sure you take down their contact information, because they're going to be helpful to you right now, but they can be helpful to you when we get past this, and we will get past this. I certainly appreciate all of you participating right now. I know and understand that these are unprecedented times, and that your businesses are struggling right now. And so we want to give you information that hopefully will be helpful with that. I think all of you have heard people say that small business is the backbone of our economy. Raise your hand if you've heard that more than a few times. Right now that's being proven, because obviously our economy, this is a public health crisis, but this is also an economic crisis. And so much of our conversation will deal with the economic part of that today. But I want to thank all of you for the strength that you brought to this situation. You are entrepreneurial, you take risks to create an economy, to employ our neighbors, to provide benefit to our community. And right now, as a state legislator, we got to do what we can to step up and try and help you when we need you. So I want to assure you that California is doing everything that we can to not just stop the spread of COVID-19, but to ease the crushing burden of the sudden economic impact on businesses and on individuals. I'm going to run through a couple of quick things that we've done, then Daniel will do his part, and then we'll do Q&A. Hopefully that works for everybody. Right now, the legislature is adjourned. We adjourned back on March the 16th after passing a bipartisan unanimous package of $1.1 billion funding our response. Now, the lion's share of that money goes to the public health response. That's doing things like expanding hospital capacity, acquiring equipment like ventilators, sheltering our homeless. I think some of you all have seen our convention center has been converted into a 2 million square foot homeless shelter, and to fund public health systems across the state. But of course, there is an economic impact on our community, and the funds that we have committed are in part funding that. And I want to tell you about a couple of things that I think are important. Some of you may already know about these, but I'm always surprised by the number who may have missed something, which again is understandable in the crush of information that's coming forward. So let me highlight a couple as business owners that you'd want to know about. A couple of days ago, Governor Newsom announced some additional relief options. The first one I want to draw to your attention is a 1-year small business sales tax reprieve. Small businesses are allowed to delay payment of up to $50,000 of sales taxes for up to 12 months. So what that means is there will be no fines, no interest, no penalties on not paying that $50,000 in sales taxes. This is meant to function as a zero interest bridge loan to help as we get through this particular crisis. And I hope that all of you will take advantage of that opportunity. Additionally, we have taken some of our pandemic response funds and put 50 million of those dollars in the California Infrastructure Economic Development Bank. It's commonly known as the iBank. And it's for microloans to small businesses that may not qualify for other forms of business relief. Essentially, these are fairly flexible dollars. I think some of you have interacted with some of the existing programs that are out there. Maybe you found that you don't qualify for whatever reason, and this may be a fairly flexible source of funds. 50 million is a lot of money to you or I individually. In a state as big as ours, it's maybe not as much as we'd like. So that's why I want to draw your attention to it, because I imagine that that will be heavily utilized in a very quick amount of time. Other relief measures that you must know about is that California Franchise Tax Board has pushed back the tax deadline to July 15th. It aligns with the federal government's move back to July 15th. So all of us who know April 15th are anticipating April 15th. July 15th is the new April 15th. And that is just for individuals. That's also for LLCs. And that's something that you should take advantage of. Additionally, I and others have been advocating for local tax collectors to limit penalties for the late filing of property taxes. And our local San Diego tax collector, Dan McAllister, announced on Saturday morning that they will be waiving late fees and penalties for failing to pay property taxes in a timely fashion. They are not advertising that the way I'd like them to. And so I would want to get this information out to you all right now. I imagine some of you were not capable of paying that particular bill last week when it became due. Again, I want to draw your attention to the fact that there is a penalty waiver process. It's on their website, and you should check it out and file individually. There's not going to be an automatic relief. It's going to require you to actually file for it. Additionally, businesses can request a 60-day payroll tax deferral from EDD. I encourage you to look at that. And then we have also continued to offer the California Small Business Loan Guaranteed Program, which provides loans to small businesses to help create and retain jobs in low and moderate income communities across California. Now, just want to transition to what I'm hearing the most about from a lot of you is the need for grants, not loans. Understood, I got that, grants, not loans. And the challenges that you're finding in applying for federal relief packages, as well as uncertainty around unemployment just for your furloughed employees, as well as for self-employed and independent contractors. Now, I want to just, Danny's going to go into detail on the federal programs, so I want to spend some time on the unemployment part of the equation. If you're like me, you're just as frustrated about EDD's response time, but it's important to provide some perspective where this is concerned. Let me give you a couple of facts and figures. Over the past 4 weeks, EDD has received 2.3 million claims for unemployment insurance, 2.3 million in just the last month. 925,000 of those claims were processed last week alone. This is in contrast to our typical volume of claims, which is about 2,000 per day in California pre-pandemic. So it gives you a sense of the scale of what we're dealing with here. Now you're like, okay, that's fine, but what are you doing about it? Well, what we're doing about it is that we are redirecting staff from other state agencies to add to the number of EDD employees that are processing claims. That's happening now. We've expanded and provided overtime for these workers so that they're working from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week, including Sundays. And we have authorized additional new staff to be hired to process these claims. Now, that's probably cold comfort for those of you that are waiting to hear back from folks, but hopefully it's a recognition that we get it and that we need to put more resources towards this, and we're doing exactly that. Also, you're probably aware that the CARES Act, the Federal CARES Act, which was signed by the President on March 27th, provides some additional benefits. So in the context of this huge expansion in the amount of claims, we've also had a pretty significant change to the program. Unemployment now lasts longer, it's 13 weeks longer. It's worth more, there's $600 more on top of the existing state benefit. And probably like a lot of you on this webinar, it now allows for payments to self-employed and independent contractors. And I want to take a little bit of time to talk about that. That program is called the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. It's referred to as PUA or PUI, depending on who you're talking to. It's important for you to know that EDD is still setting up the application process for PUA. And I've been told by those who are seeking to apply for it that they're going to have to wait until EDD has posted the application on its website, which is edd.ca.gov. Now, I mention this because this is different guidance than just a couple of weeks ago, and I want to be clear about that. Our initial direction after the CARES Act was passed was to tell everyone to just apply and we'll figure it out. Because it's become clear to us that this is a completely separate program, we have to get additional guidance from the federal government, stand up a separate application, and go through all that. Any of you who've already applied, don't worry about it, we'll figure it out. but I want to let you know that when you see that application go online on that EDD website, go ahead and apply for it. Now, at this time, they're not giving me a timeline for when that's going to be available. And I'll let you know that that answer is not satisfactory to me. And in fact, I have a meeting tomorrow with the Director of Unemployment to discuss this matter with them. But for the time being, the instruction is to wait. Now, I want to tell you that when it does come online, PUA is going to cover 39 weeks of benefits and can apply to weeks of unemployment dating back to January 27th, 2020, and will go out to the end of this year. The minimum payment under PUA will be $167 per week, and the maximum will be $450 per week. Now, this is where it gets a little complicated, but I want to be clear. You will also qualify for the additional $600 that are in the CARES Act for traditional unemployment. So the $450 for PUA plus the $600 for traditional unemployment gives you a maximum benefit of $1,050 per week, matching what is the maximum allowed under traditional unemployment. Couple last things before I toss it over to Danny. Is it takes about 3 weeks for applicants to receive their claim. I'm told that that's still the case. I've heard varying answers about that. Some people have said, yes, I got it in that length of time. Others have told me it's taken longer. EDD right now is waiting search requirements. I think many of you who've ever experienced unemployment before, you have to certify that you are looking for work. They've waived that requirement. It's understandable given the circumstances. And applicants will receive backdated funds starting from the date that they filed for their claim. They'll just need to certify those weeks for payment. So I want to wrap up by pointing you all to the best place of information for state COVID-19 resources, and that's covid19.ca.gov. I would just bookmark that. It's covid19.ca.gov. That website is updated almost hourly with new information. Every day, Governor Newsom provides a noon press conference where he answers or shares information. All that information is immediately posted to the website. So I would just check that daily. I think when PUA comes online, that's probably the first place you're gonna hear about it. So check that out. The other good one that I would recommend is the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, also known as GoBiz. Danny mentioned it a moment ago. It's also a good resource for businesses under normal circumstances, but it can also be beneficial right now. And that's business.ca.gov. Again, it's business.ca.gov. That's the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. The last resource I want to provide you is that my office is here to serve you. Believe it or not, we are deemed essential employees, so we're working. Some of us remotely, some from the office. What my staff has seen is a 10-fold increase in the number of requests for assistance from constituents. That's everything from unemployment to Covered California to Medi-Cal. You can imagine the number of programs that folks are leaning on right now during this crisis. And many times there are people who just don't fit into the box, you know, people who maybe circumstances are a bit unusual, and we can often be helpful in trying to advocate for those individuals. So I would encourage you to reach out to my office. And if you're not a resident of the 78th Assembly District, that's cool. Just contact your state representative, whether it's your assembly member or your state senator. But my office information is, write this down as our phone number, which we are answering calls, is 619-645-3090. I'll say it again, it's 619-645-3090. And my email address is Assemblymember, so my title, Assemblymember.Gloria, my last name, at assembly.ca.gov. So again, assemblymember.gloria@assembly.ca.gov. Those are the two best ways to reach me and my team. We'll do our very best to be advocates for you. We're not always able to get the answers that we want, but we can absolutely ask them for you, and we'll do our very best to advocate. So Danny, I think I threw a lot of information at those who are on here. Hopefully some of that was helpful. I'll toss it over to you to do the federal stuff, and then we'll hang out and answer questions.
Absolutely. All right, thanks, Todd. And so I think I want to make sure just to distinguish kind of some of the different programs, because I know a lot of times the layers of government get a bit confusing. I think Todd did a good job explaining some of that with what his role is as a state legislator, and that there's been programs from the city level. I know some of you probably applied for the Small Business Relief Fund. I know the city's processing that, and I did hear an update last week from the city that they're looking to increase that fund. Of course, the state through iBank and through unemployment is providing a number of different assistance programs. The iBank programs are a lot of the micro lending that you'll be able to see, and I'll talk about that here. And so I'm going to talk about the two federal programs. programs in that we are an SBA resource partner. A couple of things. One, I'm not the SBA. And number two, I'm not a congressman. So I can't necessarily change the policy, and I can communicate the policy and I can teach you what it is, but I can't change the policy or update it. And I don't have any, alas, my magic wand broke last month. So I'm going to share my screen, kind of go through this presentation a bit quickly. I realize, but just to kind of highlight some of the things and talk about some of the different types of things that we do. Of course, again, like I said at the top, we're funded by the Small Business Administration and the Governor's Office in Business and Economic Development. As such, we're a resource for small businesses to be able to receive assistance for their particular, for their business. In normal times, it's about a whole bunch of different array of topics, and the like. We are essential workers, we realize, but we're not working in our office, but all of our folks are working from home, and they are able to assist you one-on-one. We also have a number of different webinars like this we're doing with the Assemblymember. We have recorded on-demand webinars as well that will be able to walk you through the two different program applications. So real quick, the Assemblymember talked about most of the state programs, and that's outstanding. Please take advantage of those. I'm going to talk about the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the Paycheck Protection Program today. I do recommend you stay in touch with us and see who's actually being able to, what different programs are out there, and we're going to continue to communicate those and update you with what those are. So the Assemblymember talked about the bottom three bullet points, and in particular the middle two. The one I want to really emphasize, though, is that you should make sure you talk to your creditor. If you haven't talked to any of your creditors to date, make sure you do that. Send them an email, let them know about the situations. They're offering deferments. If you have a guaranteed SBA loan, those deferments are for 6 months, and the SBA is paying the interest on the loan during that time. So that's a huge, huge important thing. The other component is the Federal Reserve Board also did actually say to all banks and lenders to offer deferrals or restructures. Deferrals are easy, restructures might be a bit complicated. If they're requiring you to do a restructure, contact us. We'll be able to kind of help you walk through what that would really look like. And then the other one is make sure you're communicating with your landlord. I know that the city in particular has an anti-eviction order in place, but you want to make sure you maintain a good relationship with your landlord. Work with them in terms of what you're necessarily doing. The other thing I'd want to make sure you're able to do is take care of your financials. For the two programs I'm going to talk about, and then any other programs that come about, you are really going to need to make sure your financials are organized. So obviously you haven't done your 2019 taxes, but make sure you have all of those balance sheets in order. In particular, what you're going to want to make sure you have your sales history by month, your gross revenue, your overhead, in other words, all your expenses, payroll, rent, insurance, etc. And third category is, of course, all your costs of goods sold. So that's all your vendors that you're paying. So say, for example, you are a printing company, then that's all the paper you're buying, for example. And so that's what you're going to want to do. Also, make sure you have your completed tax returns from 2018 and 2017. They may be requested or required after you do the application, kind of on the second tier of the application process. So you're going to want to make sure you have that all set. And so that's also what you're going to do. All of that is allowing you to document a negative cause and effect that that the virus has had on your business, mainly in your ability to pay your expenses as well as your debt service. So that's what's important. And so the last thing is, of course, you're also going to want to make sure you have your monthly payroll expenses. I'm going to get into detail what that is, but make sure you're contacting your payroll provider. Make sure you're contacting your bookkeeper, however handles your payroll. That way you, the business owner, have that information at your fingertips. A big question I get in terms of this is, what if I'm an independent contractor, or I'm self-employed, or I own my own business and I pay myself not as a wage? Make sure you have what you would put down as your gross profit. So as though you did your Schedule C, what you would have paid yourself that's taxable. That's really what your income is going to be classified as for all of these programs. So the first one is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, and this is the one that came out right at the get-go. So this has been out and available for a month. It did get plussed up with the CARES Act, with the Federal Stimulus Act. So this program is that eligible entities can qualify for up to $2 million. That depends on what your expenses are. There's different underwriting standards, and don't ask me what they are because I'm not 110% sure. I have some ideas, but I know with a lot of the volume, many things are changing to simplify that process. The loans on this are at 3.75%. That's a fixed rate, and the term could be up to 30 years. Doesn't mean it has to be 30 years. We've seen loans at 10 years and 15 years for folks that have already been approved for this. Yes, we have seen approvals already for these loans, and we've assisted with them as they're coming through these. How can you use these loans? So the economic injury disaster loan, that's important to understand, it is a loan, is to be able to pay your fixed debts and payroll accounts payable. That's the big one, is your accounts payable. So maybe that's your vendors that you owe some money to, or your general liability insurance, equipment leases, or things like that. Those are things that would not be eligible under the Paycheck Protection Program that EIDL can pay for. So it's good to, as I'll talk about, to apply for both. Real quickly, anything under $25,000 does not require collateral. They're not going to absolutely insist you have collateral to approve you for the loan, but just know that conversation may come up at the second tier after you've done the initial application and the underwriters contact you. So, big difference here on the EIDL versus the next program, the Paycheck Protection. This is a loan directly from the U.S. federal government. So that is who's lending you the money. The lender and the lending processor will be the Small Business Administration, and the money will come directly from the U.S. Treasury. You apply at this link, covid19relief.sba.gov. This link and then the state links that the Assembly member mentioned, I'll send out in an email with the recording after this. But that's an important one to do because that's where the simplified application is. The other thing I want to express with this program, as well as the Paycheck Protection Program, is that there is no cost to apply. Many of you probably receive texts or emails from people saying, if you pay me $2,500, I'll help you make sure you get the money from the federal government. Don't. If they are not an existing trusted advisor, so let's say it's your CPA you've had for 10 years and they're helping you, that's one thing. But if this is someone it's not an existing trusted relationship and they're charging you, then don't pay them. We are here to help you for free. We will be able to get you that assistance that you need. And so as well as if some of your trusted advisors, they may be able to also help you a little bit as well. Do not fall for any of these. There's a lot of different scams going on. So I cannot stress that point enough. There is no cost to apply. And then the other point is if you're not getting in, when there's additional information that's asked for this program or any other program, if you don't know it's directly for this one, the SBA, from the Paycheck Protection Program, the bank with whom you applied for, or even from the city of San Diego, if it's not coming directly from them, don't trust it because there's a lot of people out there trying to get scam information. So that's something I cannot stress enough. And so that's the EIDL. So when you get to the covid19relief.sba.gov, this is the page that you'll see. I will also email the link out where we have an on-demand webinar that walks you through this application process. I recommend before you go to that application, watch that video because then that'll tell you the information that you need to have at your fingertips. Because if you have an error on it, that's the number one thing that's causing delays or rejections is if you complete it incorrectly. So you're going to need to make sure you have your EIN, your gross revenues, your cost of goods sold, all the owner information, not just you if you're not the sole owner, but any percentage of owner, their social security number, their date of birth, extensive information. The only two reasons we're seeing these truly denied beyond errors is number one is if you have a tax lien, and so if you have an existing tax lien, that could cause for denial, or a bankruptcy in the last 3 years. The other questions, because you wouldn't even be eligible, is if you had some sort of issue in the past where you defaulted on an SBA loan. And so those are pretty much the only reasons. Other than that, credit is no longer an issue. So apply, absolutely apply. Even those with a bankruptcy, apply. You'll get an initial denial, and we've already been helping people walk through to get that actually approved. The other program that I've affectionately nicknamed Mr. Murky, the Paycheck Protection Program, because it is, of course, changing very quickly. But to understand why it's changing so quickly is this was signed into law just 16 days ago. This was then normally once a new program comes about, a whole rulemaking process takes somewhere from 6 months to 18 months. They took 6 days and got the information into banks' hands. Then banks had to turn around, very conservative large institutions had to turn around and implement this program. So that's why it's been very conservative. And banks also, just so you understand, they also still have to comply with all standard banking regulations, like things like anti-money laundering, which is very complex for them. And so that's why they've been rolling it out on limited bases, primarily to existing customers, but they are expanding this program and more lenders are coming online every day. I saw about 15,000 new lenders come online last week. So that's certainly a beneficial for it. And so this, of course, is the program that's a loan directly from the bank or other lenders. And so you need to reach out first to your bank if they're offering the program. That's the best way to go through. I know not all banks are doing that, and I know they're still limiting it sometimes too. But you can also find a lender at this page, sba.gov/paycheck protection/find. They're adding new banks all the time. If it's a lender that you cannot find on this list, that means they're not actually lending. And so because there are websites out there saying they're offering the Paycheck Protection Program, but in reality what they are is they're loan brokers and they're trying to capture your information. Then they're going out to banks and trying to sell that to try and do that. So if they're not on this list, don't trust them. The other one I'm going to say here at the top, and I'll probably say it again, is only apply one time. Do not have more than one active application. If you have more than one active application, that could cause all the applications to be denied. So if you get denied from one bank, then certainly you can go and apply at a different lender, but do not have more than one active application. Those are things we're seeing as problems for this. So real quick, what are kind of some of the eligibilities? If you're a small business in operation prior to February 15th, 2020, and you either paid employees or you paid yourself, that's what makes you eligible for this. And so if you're an independent contractor, let's say, for example, you're a barber or a hairstylist and you rent a chair at a hair salon, then certainly that's something that would make you eligible for this program. Because in that instance, you're not an employee, rather you are your own business. So you're eligible for this for the amount of money that you pay yourself that would be considered taxable on your 1040. So that's what's important to kind of understand how that particularly works. So the loan application, there is a time frame on this. It's only available through June 30th, 2020. But obviously, most of the applications are going to come in at this time. We know that this was a $350 billion program. We also know that Treasury and the SBA have already asked for additional funds from Congress. They have yet to authorize them, but there still is plenty of money out there for businesses, and it is anticipated that there will be additional funds. That's what we're being told. And so can't guarantee it. Again, I'm not a congressman. But those are a couple of things to understand. So the other part is how the loan is factored. It's based on 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. The next slide, I'll get into more detail as to what that specifically means. But what it is basically it's payroll that's your fully loaded, including your state payroll taxes, not your federal. I'll explain that more in the next one. Your group health insurance the employer paid, and your retirement. It does include workers' comp. We did get that ruling from the SBA. The cool thing about this loan is it's forgivable. So it is not a grant, but it is a forgivable loan, which can end up operating like a grant. But you have to demonstrate certain things. Number one is 75% of the loan at least has to go to payroll expenditures, of which includes paying yourself as the owner or as an independent contractor. The other 25% can be on rent, mortgage interest, or utility costs. So that's kind of some of the basic things. And so that's why we're recommending that you do apply for both, because with the PPP and the EIDL, because there's probably a lot of other overhead type expenditures that PPP will not cover. So what is payroll? Payroll's your wages, commissions, cash tips, everything that a W-2 employee would receive. That's what's important, is this is just eligible for W-2 employees and you, the owner. So understand that, that's super important. Second part is, of course, the state payroll taxes. That's pretty much SUI, because the federal employer paid taxes are excluded because they have a lot of payroll tax holidays for the types of things that the assembly member was talking about. Any payments you have for leave, as well as the employer portion of group health and retirement plans, and also, of course, with the workers' comp is also included within there. So those are some things. And for your compensation, so I get a lot of questions, I'm just an independent contractor, can I apply? The answer is absolutely yes. But you need to make sure you calculate and can clearly demonstrate for 2019, and then for the portion after you get the loan, what you would pay yourself that would be considered taxable. So think about that. What you would have claimed on your Schedule C, if you'd completed your taxes by the next 2 days, you need to at least have that calculations, because that's going to be the calculation for the loan amount. So that's what's super important for that. So you are eligible for that. The couple exclusions. Number one is any employee whose principal residence is outside the United States. I know that's for a number of our employers here in San Diego. That may be an issue, so it's important to flag. And the compensation in excess of $100,000 per year. So if someone makes $120,000 per year, the calculation would not be on $10,000 per month, but rather $8,333 per month. So up to $100,000 is included, but over that is not. So a couple things on the clock for this I don't have on, in terms of how these work. So when you apply, you obviously submit the application. Once the bank approves your loan, they have 10 calendar days to fund the loan. In other words, get you the check. You're approved for $100,000. They have 10 days to get you $100,000. The day they fund you is when the clock starts ticking for your 8 weeks of payroll. So you need to be fully prepared. If you've laid off employees and you intend to rehire them, that'd be the time period you'd want to do to bring them back, get them back on payroll, so that way you can pay them. Because the intent of this program is for people to be able to, one, continue to get paid through their employer, you to benefit as an employer to retain your employees, because the last thing you want to do is come out of here and have to rehire your entire staff or retrain a whole bunch of people. So those are what a couple of the benefits are. I'm going to skip through these couple of slides here to sample payroll reports and just get to this page and then one other one on the application. Then we'll roll into some questions because I see quite a few that have popped in there. So this is the SBA application. There are many different types of formats that the banks are having this through their online portals, but this is the core information that you're going to need. So make sure you know what you are. So again, if you're a sole proprietor or an independent contractor eligible self-employed, that means you do not have an existing corporate structure. Otherwise, if you are incorporated, you'll be one of these three here. Yes, 501c3 nonprofits are eligible, and we are able to provide some basic assistance to them as well. So again, the calculation is your average monthly payroll times 2.5, but then less what your economic injury disaster loan is. So let's go back to that. Because the economic injury disaster loan is also one that will provide up to $10,000 advance, which functions like a grant, and how that works. So that $10,000 is calculated based on the total number of declared employees you have. So if you're an independent contractor, you have one, yourself. So that's where it starts. So everyone will receive at least $1,000 on that. That's the formula they created. How they came up with that, I don't know. Can I change it? I cannot. But that's the formula. So if you've received an advance from EIDL, that lessens what your Paycheck Protection Program loan would be. So let's say I have 5 employees, my average monthly payroll is $10,000. That would mean times 2.5 is $25,000. But that also meant I got a $5,000 advance from EIDL, so that takes my Paycheck Protection loan down to $20,000. So that's basically how that is calculated. Couple extra things after you complete that is just you would be doing a number of different certifications and eligibility questions along with providing ownership information. Understand this, and with the EIDL, you're self-certifying under the penalty of perjury of law that all the information is truthful. So one of the things that's important to kind of say is, for example, here is if you've received an EIDL loan and that type of information, but then another one is right here. Is a current economic uncertainty makes the loan request necessary. Because we get questions saying, okay, I haven't been negatively impacted by COVID and the situation. Can I apply for the Paycheck Protection Program? Well, that means no, because this is for the thousands and millions of businesses that have been negatively impacted. That's who this loan is for. So understand that's how that particularly works. So again, we're here to be able to help. We're going to kind of roll through some questions. I'll do my best to try and get to a number of different ones that are in there. Scroll back up to some of the ones that were early and see what we've got.
Danny, as you're looking for those, I noticed a question I wanted to address on business interruption insurance. I see Alan had asked that. I imagine you get a lot of those questions. Am I right? Yeah. And,
oh, yeah.
Alan, what I would say, and to all of you who have policies and you've inquired with your insurance companies, I'm grateful that you have. The California Insurance Department, our insurance commissioner, Ricardo Lara, and I are in frequent communication about this. He's requested the insurance companies, he's basically pulled them for their information on how they're handling this. He's collecting that information now. I actually spoke with him again this morning because I know that this is a major issue for a lot of the small businesses who felt as though they were covered and are being denied. I think that this is going to be an ongoing concern. Watch the insurance commissioner's website for additional information. You can see that call for information he put out a couple of days ago. My hope is that information will help lead him to find some way to help businesses, maybe split the baby somehow to allow these insurance policies to help be another source of assistance. The likelihood of this ending up in litigation is probably pretty significant. Nevertheless, I would hope that you would reach out to your insurance companies, stay in close communication with the insurance commissioner, and watch that website for more information. And of course, my office will keep you apprised as well.
Thank you for that. Yeah, because we have been getting a lot of questions. We were hoping that that was something that would be available for folks early on, and unfortunately, it is not. Not many people realize that there were virus exceptions, and so that's been a big problem. So I'm going to go through a couple of questions. We'll actually throw this one first to you, Todd. So they've applied. So they're an independent contractor. They applied for unemployment. So do they need to reapply when PUA comes online, or how should they handle that?
Yeah, and I forgive forgive us for the confusion on this because this guidance has changed. Initially, we were told to tell our constituents to go ahead and apply for who are self-employed or independent contractors to apply now for unemployment, traditional unemployment. That direction changed sometime last week. I forget when they gave us that heads up. And instead, you should hold tight until that application for PUA is posted on EDD's website. So I don't think there's anything bad's going to happen because you previously applied. But when you see that application go online, apply for that new one. And again, beg your forgiveness on that change of direction. I think we're, as you were mentioning, Danny, this legislation, this $2 trillion relief package was passed 16 days ago. I think we're all rushing to try and implement it. So the best advice I have for you right now is go ahead and apply again under PUA if you're self-employed or an independent contractor.
Awesome. Then the next one I have here is what about Airbnb hosts? And this is actually for anyone who's who does have rental income. Under the EIDL application, it actually has a specific line for anyone. So this is anyone who's a landlord in simple terms. And an Airbnb host is a landlord for, in very, very simple, broad terms. So if you lose rental income, that is actually a specific line that's on the EIDL application. So you'd want to have that calculation that you are losing from that for that particular piece of income. So that's all that there really is available for that, but it does specifically have that. And those that have asked that before, those are some of the things I've suggested. So this one I'll throw to you, Todd. So the EDD application for self-employed people, how does that necessarily work?
Well, it's the same thing, right? So self-employed traditionally would not qualify for unemployment insurance. But the CARES Act, the federal legislation passed 16 days ago, does open up a form of insurance, a new form of insurance, PUA, for that. So, previously when we were giving advice to folks to apply for unemployment, even though they're self-employed, we would just list the employer as yourself. Again, the direction we have now is that you should reapply under PUA. And again, that application is not ready yet. I was looking around online this morning. I could only find that Michigan went live with their PUA application today. I was looking at New York and Pennsylvania and other states are still like us, putting it together. It's a wholly new benefit. Again, historically, if you're an independent contractor or self-employed, you would not receive unemployment insurance. We're able to do this because of this infusion of $2 trillion from the federal government. But again, it's creating a whole new program at a time when all of our resources are going towards fighting the epidemic and responding to this 2.4 million claims for unemployment insurance from traditional workers. But I think we all recognize there are many people who are self-employed who are hurting. They need this benefit. We need to implement it now. So stay tuned on that front.
Absolutely. And then kind of some of the dovetail off of that question, I'll answer, which is in terms of their partial assistance or things like this. Still make sure you apply as an independent contractor, as your own business for the economic injury disaster loan. That will get you at least that $1,000 grant for you as the one employee. And I recognize that's not a lot of money, but again, at this point, you're going to kind of have to piece things together from unemployment insurance through PUA, through the economic injury disaster loan, and other assistance that might be available out there. And we understand that it is tricky in terms of that, but you really, take advantage of each of those programs that you're able to then do. So that kind of gives them that information. So regarding iBank loans, so this one says none of the banks are responding listed, including Cal Southern. They're inundated. So I'm going to explain how the California loan guarantee works. So we work super close with California Southern, who's what they call a financial development corporation. There's 6 in the state of California. California Southern's our local one. They basically, in simple terms, it is their insurance for a loan for another lender. And so that's what that means. And so the loan that they are able to then give is through a different lender. So kind of like how PPP is through a lender, but the US Treasury and the SBA are funding those loans. So the state of California would then fund another lender. To the 2 largest nonprofit lenders that use the state guarantee program here in San Diego are CDC Small Business Finance and Acción. And a number of private lenders, not for-profit lenders, use them as well. And so the loans that you would get through them are oftentimes guaranteed by the state of California. I know both of those institutions are putting together new programs that will take advantage of these programs, of these loans that are guaranteed through iBank. And again, we're excited that the governor has lifted a lot of restrictions in terms of those, because in the past, the processing for that could take 3 weeks, and now they're telling us they can take 3 to 5 days. And so those are some good things that are going to be coming there. Yes, we'll post some of the links. Let's see here. Okay, the 501c6. Yes, 501c6s are only eligible for the EIDL. I'm aware that BIDs and Main Streets and all of those, they can't apply for those programs. Again, I didn't write the law. I can't, there's nothing we can really do in terms of that. Other than recommend you do apply for the economic injury disaster loan. We are assisting a number of different BIDs, Main Street programs, chambers of commerce already. To be able to assist as many nonprofits as we could, we created a partnership with the University of San Diego's Nonprofit Institute, and they're being able to assist them. We've trained them up on the different programs. EIDL and the 3-day turnaround. I know. That's all I can tell you is that they were telling us all last week that those funds would start jumping out. And I can't tell you how many, I have emails straight all the way up to associate administrators in the SBA. And there's what's called the Office of Disaster Assistance, and they're the ones making the decisions. And I honestly don't know why those aren't happening. And we hear you. We hear you loud and clear. Again, I don't work for the SBA, and I know thousands of people that work for the SBA that also don't know the answers to these questions. We're pushing. Hopefully those will start showing up this week. We were told that last week, and trust me, I'm asking that question more than once a day. Do self-employed with no employees qualify for any assistance? Yes. So if you're self-employed with no employees, you are an employee. Understand that. Every business has at least one employee. As far as the SBA's programs are concerned, you, the owner. So that's what you would absolutely want to do. You applied March 30th for the EIDL. So if you applied with the simplified application that I showed, so that screen at covid19relief.sba.gov, hopefully what you should have did is when you completed it, they had a confirmation number, an application number. Save that, and that's what you will be getting contacted is based upon that number. In the email, I'll put the email address and the 1-800 number for the SBA. But the sad thing is they don't have a lot of information either. So just so you understand that they've received over 3 million EIDL applications and are working on processing those. Self-employed real estate broker as an S Corp. Do I pay myself? Have not heard back on PPP. Best thing is so you would want to, with your PPP, it's what you as the owner, your income that would be taxed. So that's what really you'd want to do. So if you have rental income or things like that, again, what would be considered taxable income, your gross profit, so your adjusted gross profit on your Schedule C is what you'd want to include.
Danny, as you're scrolling, maybe you can scroll through for some more comments. I had 2 questions that were
Good.
sent to my office before we logged on. And I
Please do.
appreciate all of you who sent those questions. I think we're scrolling through some of those too, but 2 were kind of interrelated. One was about filing for unemployment insurance, but not receiving acknowledgement that it was received. And I would say in that particular situation, hopefully you applied online. That's the way to do it. There are other ways, but we really, really recommend applying online. When you complete the application, you should receive a confirmation number at the end, and you should write that number down. So to that person who asked about losing their employment and not receiving acknowledgement from EDD about their application, I'd like to know if you have that confirmation number. If you don't, you may want to resubmit, because I'm concerned that without that confirmation number, we don't know if you completed your application. What we're finding is some technical issues on the state side, but actually a lot from people's home networks that are overwhelmed by internet usage during the day. And so without that confirmation, that's just a concern I have. So if you have that confirmation number, I would say contact my office and let's see if we can advocate for you through EDD. If you don't have that confirmation number, you might want to try resubmitting. For the second person, the musician who has, sounds like they subsisted without a W-2 or other sorts of forms of confirming your income, and asking whether or not you can apply. I think you can apply. There's a pretty wide berth that's been provided for applying for unemployment benefits. You may have some real challenges with proving your income level to qualify for any level of assistance. But again, this may be one of those square pegs, round hole situation, and maybe contact my office directly, allow us to advocate for you as well. It's a little bit harder without documentation. Hopefully you have something like a 1040 or something like that we can show. But anyway, will allow us to advocate for you. Again, in the vast majority of cases, the system will work fine. In some of these outlier cases, it may be a bit harder, and that can be where we can be most effective. How about, what's the next question, Danny?
So yeah, I'll just reiterate on that. I'll just say there's been 2 positive experiences in my household. I got a couple of adult daughters that had to apply for unemployment, and they've already, in a week, they did get their processing done. So they are processing. I've seen examples in my own home.
You know what? I believe in trust, but
I have a 21-year-old and a 24-year-old. So yeah, so it's coming. So a number of questions that came in are around the PPP and finding a lender. So kind of how I talked about this is the banks are rolling this out kind of piecemeal and in different ways. And so you need to, so for the PPP, since it is through an existing lender, you go to that website that I showed in terms of finding a lender. Vast majority of them I know are working with their own customers. And the number one reason they're working with their own customers is because they still have to comply with these anti-money laundering rules. And so if it's an existing customer, it's easier for them to comply with those rules. But there are more lenders coming online that will be offering it to non-customers, or if you open up a small business checking account with them. And so those are continuously coming about, and plus there's going to be a number of them that'll probably be some quality online SBA approved online lenders, and one that we there's a couple that we're double checking to make sure that they're kosher, and we'll be able to put that information out in terms of what that necessarily would look like. So I know that is a huge confusion from some banks that would turn the faucet on, turn it off, only allow certain high worth customers, and those types of issues. I know that is a big problem. The other one I know is of course a lot of questions around that you haven't heard back from your EIDL application. If you applied with the old style application with all the forms and everything like that, and you didn't get a confirmation number, what we've been told is, so basically if you applied on March 29th or prior with the old format, then you do need to go the simplified format to receive the $10,000 grant. If you've applied after March 30th on the simplified application, make sure you've saved what that particular application number is, because that's how you'll particularly be able to kind of track that and so forth. So those are a couple of the things that we did be able to kind of have in there. One question there, I'm sure this is related to the city. Do I respond to Elizabeth Studemaker's email? Yes, if it comes from a san diego.gov email, you respond. If it comes from your applications in sba.gov, do respond. That's an important distinction. The .gov is actually, Todd, you explain how hard those are to have.
I mean, by and large, yeah, that you're exactly right, Danny. And I've heard this from other constituents. So I'm grateful we can sort of underline, exclamation point this. yeah, I mean, look at the source of it. And I'm very concerned that some of you who are hurting and are just going to, grab any life preserver that's thrown in your direction, check the source. If you have a question about that individual, call SBDC, call my office, and allow us to tell you. But Liz Studebaker is legit. That .gov. If you know her, she's legit. If you don't know her, you can see that .gov and recognize that's not just given away. Obviously, they have to have contact to a public server to have that. I imagine there's probably some way that you can manipulate that, but I think the chances of that are far slimmer. I think the reality is that you have to look at that very closely. Don't trust any phishing websites. Make sure it's from a trusted source. Make sure it's from someone that you maybe actually interacted with. If you're getting communication from an agency that you never interacted with, that's probably a sign that something's not right. But yeah, .gov for sure. That's at least an indicator that you're talking to a trusted source that's worthy of sharing your information with, or at least getting back to. And don't ever mind, I know it's hard to get through on some phone lines, but also calling is fine too.
Absolutely. So yeah, if you have questions, if you question whether or not it's from the SBA, you can call the local district office or the customer service number I'll provide. And then, that's super important, because we are hearing time and time again of these different types of scam situations that are coming about. And, we really, really want to make sure we're able to be able to kind of stress some of that information. So another couple questions about it is in terms of, a few different ones on the disaster loan. So you have to be impacted. Absolutely. That's the intent of these programs. It's just sort of like you can't apply for unemployment while you're employed. And so these are similar types of things. You have to be impacted and be able to demonstrate what that impact is. And that'll be part of the underwriting process. In terms of the paycheck protection, I'm getting asked, as well as EIDL, what are some of the credit criteria? They aren't very strong. Again, I'm going to say they're not really looking at credit per se, other than to look for a bankruptcy within the last 3 years, a tax lien, or if you did default on an SBA guaranteed loan. Those are the things that will cause you for denial. The number one that we can work around is the bankruptcy, and you can work with us to be able to do that. And so I see a lot of stuff still about the lenders. I know that that's a particular issue. Trust me, there's thousands of them coming online. Check back at those SBA, that link in terms of the find, and we'll try and get that. Another one about applying to multiple banks the same day. Cancel one of the applications. Because again, what happens is when the banks upload that information to the SBA system, if that's coming from 2 tracks, the SBA is going to kick that back to both banks, which is going to cause a denial. And so again, since these systems are automated and there's not actually people that are doing this, the system will automatically do that and will absolutely, will for sure kick that back. So you do not want to have more than one application. Another question, it's a good one. I want to kind of clarify this. So I'm a general contractor and I use subcontractors. Do they qualify for a PPP? This can be an example from a construction company, from a hair salon or a barber shop, or a whole bunch of different situations where you may have subcontractors that you do contract. They, each of them, as their own individual businesses, as self-employed individuals, or if they have employees, they do qualify if they're negatively impacted by the disaster for PPP and EIDL. And so they certainly should be applying the same. Let's see, trying to scroll through, got a lot of questions. Trying to think what else. So yeah, so again, the EIDL, I know it's not coming back quickly. I don't trust us, we're asking a lot of questions about that. Some in the weeds questions, so I think that would be good. So we're not still sure on when the PUA is coming out. I know Todd's talked about that. And we do have that in terms of the insurance. So we're about out of time. Todd, do you want to kind of wrap some things up?
Yeah, just for that PUA person, I don't know when they might have logged in or logged out, but the EDD website is the best place to go, edd.ca.gov. I'm looking at it right now on my other screen, and they do have a specific site that they actually created on Friday for pandemic unemployment assistance. hopeful sign that there's forward progress. Long and the short of it, again, is we're creating a new program. We're relying on some federal guidance on how we're actually going to implement this. And, I have an appointment tomorrow with the director of EDD to try and understand what she's doing, how it's being implemented, try and glean some more information. And I will certainly share whatever I get from you all. But again, I know it's hard to hear patience and sit tight when you got bills in your mailbox, creditors in your phone, in your voicemail. But we're advocating as best we can. I'm just grateful that there's actually a resource available for independent contractors and the self-employed. Traditionally, again, that would not exist absent the CARE Act. We just need to make sure we implement that and implement it quickly. And then just in summation, I think there's no real upside to this pandemic. I can't really put a positive spin on this, but to the extent that it's helping educate all of you on the resources that are out there. Again, SBDC and the work that Danny and his team do is good all year round. And there's certainly a resource for my office, and I hope that you rely on them as a resource. And again, my office is available too. I recognize you may see me on television, I get to vote on stuff, whatever, but at its core, what I am is the customer service department for the state of California. And so when you have a problem with the state, or when you, again, those round pegs into square holes, when you're in one of those situations, allow us to advocate for you. I have an incredible team of public servants, a whole staff here in San Diego and in my Capitol office. They're spending every part of every one of their days doing exactly that. So whether it's maybe a problem with the iBank, a question about your healthcare benefits that cover California, your unemployment claims, or just looking for information, I posted my contact info earlier in the chat session. Copy that down and be in touch. And again, I recognize that many of you may not live in the 78th Assembly District. That's okay. Call our office. We can direct you to your assembly member or state senator. We're all in this together. We all have to help one another. And I think what Danny and I are trying to do this morning is share with you the best information that we have at this time. Again, recognizing and knowing that this information is changing extremely quickly and extremely fast. And we're hopeful that this is beneficial to you. And again, if we can be of helpful, customer service department for the state, be in touch. We'll be happy to try and lend you a hand.
Thank you so much, Assembly Member. I appreciate the invite to get on. Like I said at the beginning, I'll be emailing out a recording to this webinar, a number of the different links that we do have. And, I know that these programs are changing. I know it's frustrating with what the SBA is doing in terms of some of the implementation. But know that they're moving as quickly as possible. I have seen some EIDL approvals from the original part of the program. We have seen some PPP approvals through a few banks. So it is progressing. Continue to check back. I'll email the links to our on-demand webinars as well as the links that we talked about. And so again, thank you all for coming on. Assembly Member, thank you for the invite. Happy to be able to share this information.
Thanks for pitching in, Danny. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Hang in there, everybody.
Bye all.